Okay, so in today's video, we're going to have a look at part 3 of the Proficiency exam, the C2 Cambridge exam. And again, it's another text with 8 gaps, but it's a little bit different. Let's see how they describe it on the website here. It says it's a text containing 8 gaps. Each gap corresponds to a word. The stems of the missing words are given beside the text and must be changed to form the missing word. Basically, what that means is that they give you the word that you have to put in the gap. Well, not exactly. You have to change it a little bit. You maybe have to put a prefix or a suffix at the end of it, or change what kind of a word it is. So it might be a noun that you have to change into a verb, or vice versa, or something like that. What do you have to practice to be good at this part? Well, here on the website it says vocabulary, in particular the use of affixation. I think affixation is something to do with prefixes and suffixes, no? Fix. I don't know. Internal changes and compounding in word formation. Basically, yeah, you need to know lots of words. And also, I think a good thing here is to read the text, have a look at it, think about what kind of word goes in each gap. Let's have a look at the text. So this is what part 3 looks like on the Proficiency exam. As I said, it's a text with 8 gaps, and you give you the word, or they give you the root of the word, the stem of the word, at the side of the gap on the right hand margin. So I think a good thing to do here would be to take a look at this text, power naps. So pause the video here if you want to, and as I said, have a look at the 8 gaps and think about what kind of a word needs to go in there. Is it a verb? Is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Is it an adverb? Is it negative? So that you need to put a negative prefix at the beginning. We need to think of all these things maybe before we rush into putting the incorrect word. So pause the video now if you want to attempt this on your own without me interrupting. If not, I'm going to read the text with the correct answers, and I'll attempt to explain why I've chosen one answer or another if I feel it's necessary. Okay, so let's read the example here. Power napping is an effective strategy. It involves taking an intense sleep, which dramatically improves alertness, making it especially useful for those with a demanding schedule, such as mothers of babies or traveling business executives. However, the conditions must be right, and practice is required to maximize the effects. To prevent disorientation on awakening, power naps should last about 25 minutes. Falling asleep so quickly takes practice, but is in fact a habit which is comparably easy to acquire. Initially, it is more important to relax for a while than actually fall asleep, and power napping is not a good idea if you find it difficult to wake up at the designated time. Finally, power napping should not be confused with the kind of dozing that can accompany a sensation of overwhelming sleepiness during the day, which simply represents the desperation experienced in the attempt to compensate for a poor sleep routine. So how well did you do? I didn't think it was very difficult, this one again today, like the one yesterday. But just bear with me here. If you did get any wrong answers especially, I want to analyse a few of the answers there and explain a little bit why it had to be that word and couldn't be any other word. So let's start with number 17. We have a noun, alertness, which comes from the adjective alert. Well, we know it has to be a noun, even if you don't know that the noun is alertness. It has to be a noun because we have the transitive verb improves right before it. No, it dramatically improves. No, an intense sleep which dramatically improves. It has to improve something. So it has to be a noun in this case. I guess it could improve an activity, a verb in ing maybe. It could improve your writing. It could improve speaking. But alert, it's not really an action verb, is it? So, unless you're alerting people. But you're clearly not alerting people here. Stop trying to confuse me. So, number 18 is business executives. I think the only important thing to say here is you must be careful and make sure you write it in plural, as we have the word those. It refers to those with a demanding schedule, such as mothers of babies or traveling business executives. It has to be in plural, and that's a very, very common mistake, and it would be wrong if you only wrote executive. Okay, so moving on to 19, and we see that it has to be a verb, I think. So the conditions must be right, and practice is required to... Well, yeah, if it's required for a thing, so if it were a noun, it would have to be required for maximum effect, you could say, is required for maximum effect. But required to, it's going to be a verb. And then we have the effects at the end. So we can see that it's a verb, a transitive verb that acts upon a direct object there, maximizes the effect, required to maximize the effect. Okay, moving on to number 20, and it says to prevent disorientation. So we have the verb orientate. So first of all, it has to be a noun, disorientation, and it's got to be something negative, I think, because you want to prevent something negative. And yes, it has to be a noun because we have the transitive verb prevent. You prevent something. Again, could be a verb in ing, I suppose, but you're not going to prevent orientating, are you? That doesn't really make sense. You're going to want to prevent disorientation on awakening, because often when you wake up, you feel disorientated. No? Okay, so in number 21, we have something that can cause problems here. We have an adverb. It can often cause problems because the sentence without the adverb normally makes sense, and people struggle to think what kind of word could go in the gap. So falling asleep so quickly takes practice, but is in fact a habit which is easy to acquire. Well, it is easy to acquire, and it is, well, what can we do to modify an adjective? We can put an adverb in there. We can say it's comparably easy. No, to say it's relatively easy to acquire, relative to other things, comparable to other things. It is quite an easy thing to acquire, this ability to fall asleep quickly. So moving on to gap 22, power napping is not a good idea if you find it difficult to wake up at the time. Well, we need to say what time, so we need to give it an adjective or to make a noun phrase here, because the time doesn't make any sense. So we have to call it the designated time, the time that has been designated to wake up. Gap number 23 fairly obviously has to be a verb, dozing that can accompany a sensation that can, well, it's a modal verb that's going to modify a verb, so that can accompany a sensation of overwhelming sleepiness. Yeah, I don't think there's any doubts there. And the final gap, 24. Now, this is a bit of a complicated one. I think they've been a bit unfair here because despair and desperation, I think, are synonyms, really. They both mean the same thing. So it's not that you're changing the word despair for a variant of that word, rather than you're actually taking a synonym which looks very similar to it. What I mean is this sentence, if we just put despair in the gap, would make sense. Overwhelming sleepiness during the day, which simply represents the despair experienced in the attempt to compensate for a poor sleep routine. Despair can be a verb, but it can also be a noun. So it would make sense there. But if we have to put a noun there, represents the something, and it's not despair, then, well, it has to be desperation. There's no other possibility, I don't think. Well, I didn't have a lot of time today, so I haven't actually checked the answers. I think they're all right, but I don't know. Leave a comment if you want to disagree with me. Well done if you got them all right. But then again, they could all be wrong. I don't think any of them are wrong.